failure is, it's necessary. I mean, if you're not failing, then you're not executing the scientific method. You're gonna fail, hopefully, just slightly less than you succeed.
Welcome to episode 224 of the Pathways to Success, where we have conversations with inspiring leaders about their business and their keys to success. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have an outstanding show in store for you today. It is my privilege to welcome Will Coleman, CEO at Alto. Will, welcome to the Pathways to Success. How are you, man?
Thanks, Julian. Great to be here.
Glad to have you here, and I'm excited for our conversation. So Will, I want to jump straight in and introduce you to our audience and viewers here today. You are the CEO at Alto. Explain to us, what is Alto?
Yeah, Alto is the world's most loved, most trusted mobility brand. We are a luxury, safe, and really consistent ride-hail offering. So we're an on-demand ride service that you can call on your phone with an app, and we'll show up in just a couple of minutes and give you the best experience you can possibly find out on the road.
So what is the problem that you sought to solve when you started Alto?
Yeah, I saw a lot of problems, and I thought Alto really started because I saw that Uber and Lyft were facing challenges for drivers, challenges for passengers, challenges for investors, challenges for cities. And we'll probably talk about this a bit in the discussion, but I saw all these problems and I thought that there must be a better way, a better solution that would solve these problems for all of those stakeholders. And for some somewhat ridiculous reason, I thought that I was really well positioned to solve those problems.
So what was the genesis story? How did Alto come to be?
Yeah, Alto came to be because I really was just totally tired of the experience that I was having as a passenger. And one night I came home and had done some research in my previous life that found that women in the US were about 50% less likely to be active users of Uber and Lyft than men. That really surprised me. And I came home and told my wife, Kendall, about that and that I was surprised by it. And she told me that I was silly, that why would that surprise me? She told me, I don't even have these apps on my phone. I would never get into a car with a stranger. That's a really intimate experience and not one that I'm interested in. I said, well, we ride in an Uber all the time. And she said, yeah, we, but never me. And I was traveling a lot and I just didn't even realize that when she was going out with friends or going to our club or to out to have a dinner, that she was just driving. And so I felt like that was the moment that made it clear to me that this problem was actually pretty big and one that needed to be solved.
So as the company stands today, who is your ideal customer? Who benefits most from using Alto?
Well, we want to serve a really broad range of customers. Our business necessitates it. We're a very fixed cost business. Because of our model, we employ drivers and we own the vehicles. And so we pay for those assets, we call them. Our drivers are our biggest asset, whether they're utilized or not. And the underpinning of success in our business is utilization of those assets, making sure that they're active and serving customers. And in order to do that, we need to keep them active through many parts of the day and many days of the week with many different use cases. So we need to be serving people for all different reasons, whether you're waking up super early and headed out on a business trip or taking your kids to school or having us pick them up and take them to an after school activity or going out at night on a date or to an event. And so we want to serve a really broad base of use cases and customers, but our target is really threefold. First, women. We 59% of our riders are women. That compares to about 38% for our competitors. And also professionals, folks like you and me and people in this room that are going on a trip. Maybe they're not even paying for it. We call that OPM, other people's money. You're spending someone else's money and you're willing to pay a bit more, but you want to know what you're going to get. You're willing to stay at a Westin hotel and not an Airbnb, or go to the Starbucks because you know exactly what you're going to get every single time. And so we serve that customer really well. We serve a lot of kids, a lot of families. My parents, I don't know if I guess I can call them elderly people. We serve anybody that's looking for that safer, more consistent, higher quality experience.
And I know one of the things you do is you hire all of your drivers W-2. How does that change the experience for the customer?
What that does is it gives us control. By having employees and not independent contractors, it allows us to tell people what to do. It's actually the thing you can't do with independent contractors that you can with employees. You can direct their work. So we can train them, we can performance manage them, we can set expectations. And so through that control, we can create consistency. We can ensure that our experience is the same every single time. And that's what we really believe is the huge differentiator between us and our competitors, is that you know with certainty exactly what you're going to get. Sometimes you have a great ride with somebody else, but we believe you're only as good as your worst ride, not as your best ride.
That's actually what I wanted to know also. So besides those things, because I know there's some other companies that do something similar, but what would you say are the distinguishing factors that make Alto different than your competitors?
Yeah, we actually don't think there's many people doing it this way. In fact, it's interesting, a lot of people in our industry at least have focused on the independent contractor debate. 85% of taxi drivers in the US in history are independent contractors. And so it's very, very unique to have W-2 employees in the transportation space. It's super difficult because of what I just talked about the underpinnings of the economics and the fact that we have to take on the responsibility of asset utilization, of ensuring occupancy of our fleet and our drivers. Most businesses don't do that. They put that onus on the driver themselves to decide when they're going to go work and where they're going to work and how to maximize their individual earnings. And we believe that that's our responsibility as a company, and actually what we've been able to build really unique technology to support, to do everything from forecasting of demand to scheduling of our drivers to instantaneous optimization and dispatching of who does what when they're out on the road. So we really don't think there's anybody else out there that's taken this same approach.
Okay. So what's the status of Alto today? How many drivers? What markets are you in? Tell us that.
Yeah, we're in 5 markets now across the US. Here in Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, and Washington, D.C. And we've grown a ton. We've been on a fabulous journey, a very nonlinear one, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. And we're really excited about continuing to grow. We are looking forward to really investing in our existing markets right now. It's a really difficult capital market out there, I'll say that. Raising money has been much harder over the last couple of years than it was in the late 2019, 2020 era. And so we've reduced our aspirations a bit, set a different goal for what success looks like. But we're really excited that we've got a great team. We've got 1,800 drivers across the United States. And we're hiring people like crazy. I mean, our drivers are really the heart of our business. They're the people that serve our customers every single day. And so our aspiration is to double the size of our driver base over the next year or two.
Okay. Yeah, so you mentioned you have sort of adjusted that vision. So as CEO, you mentioned you want to double the size of it. So what is the inspiring vision of the future? What is your mission, vision for Alto over the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I said at the beginning, our mission, our vision is to be the world's most trusted and most loved mobility brand. That's, I think, a pretty high aspiration. It means that we need to be serving customers in every major city across the entire United States and someday around the world. We actually believe we've already hit that. We believe that we are more trusted and more loved, and we have the metrics to support it in the places that we operate than anyone else. But we still have a lot to do, a lot of growth ahead of us, a lot of problems to still solve to achieve that. And so we set kind of both very ambitious long-term aspirations as well as much more tactical short-term ones. And in our town hall as a company yesterday, we were talking about this month's occupancy, which is the metric that we track that tracks profitability for our business, and ensuring that we drive the right metrics to drive the right bottom line to be able to build the company in the way that we want. So we really kind of tack between talking about that really high aspiration and what we have to do today and tomorrow and this week and this month in order to hit it.
Okay. So Will, before we jump into your story and learn more about you personally, anything else that you think is worth mentioning to our audience about Alto?
No, I think we've covered the vast majority of it.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, let's kind of jump into things. And this piece really is about understanding the human behind the CEO. What are the things that you have done or experienced uniquely that sort of shaped your character? So you started your first business, a lemonade stand, at 7 years old. Where do you think your entrepreneurial nature came from?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I think it came in part from my parents and the way that they allowed me to set goals, have aspirations, but also make it clear that if I wanted those things, that was kind of on me in order to make it happen. And so at 7, I don't remember exactly what it was that I thought that I wanted or needed, but I'm sure that it was something, and that whether it was a new set of Pogs or a Pokemon card, I don't know. But
Pogs? Yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah. Does anyone here remember Pogs? Okay, all right,
all right,
good.
See?
All right,
Speaking
we are
of my
not
audience.
alone. All right, okay, cool.
The lemonade stand was really born out of what I thought was necessity, a need to earn some scratch to go be able to put down for some extra Pogs.
Okay. So it was actually a means for a specific outcome, which is to get something that you want, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that entrepreneurial nature is wired or cultivated?
Probably at least partly wired. Certainly can be cultivated. I'm trying to cultivate it in my 4 kids. I try things every day to help them understand that they can set goals, set aspirations, that they can work hard towards them, and that they will fail against them. I think that's a really important part of it as well. Certainly also I think there's a bit of innate desire or willingness to kind of put yourself out there and take those risks that are necessary in order to build something.
What are some of those things you're doing with your children to cultivate a problem-solving or entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, just last night my son asked me for a new game on his Nintendo, and I said, "Well, do you know how much that game costs?" He said, "No." Well, let's look it up. Let's see how much it is. He brought me his piggy bank. We're counting out I'll shove all in on this Nintendo game. I'm like, okay, look, we're not doing that. So that's, just small things. My 3-year-olds have been potty trained for a while, but are still wearing pull-ups to bed at night, and my son really wants to be wearing Ninja Turtle underwear right now.
Who doesn't?
And
right?
so we just literally in the last couple of days said, okay, look, Wade, in order to get to wear your Ninja Turtle underwear, you've got to go 10 nights without waking up with clean underpants. And so we got a marble jar out, and we counted out 10 marbles. We put them to the side, and every morning he wakes up and he gets to put a marble in when he's got dry pants. And this morning, unfortunately, 4 days in, woke up with a wet diaper. Devastating, We had to dump the marbles back out, but we talked about, hey, look, we're gonna try again tonight. And by doing it again, you're gonna keep learning, and you're gonna get better. And because you failed now, you had the support to be able to make sure that when you get those Ninja Turtle underwear, you're not gonna wake up with wet pants. And so from really early age, I try to set that kind of, hey, we're setting a high goal. We're learning to count to 10. We're learning to set, and track against metrics, but we're also gonna fail, and we're gonna then pick ourselves back up and keep trying. We're not gonna stop trying to get to the Ninja Turtles.
Interesting. So you're uncovering what they want and then giving them a path of things to do for them to earn the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what are some of the other businesses that followed after the lemonade stand?
Well, I started my first real business. I was pretty good at the lemonade stand, I have to admit.
Yeah?
I put it on a red wagon. I learned I grew up in a house that was on the middle of the street, but I learned that if I could take my lemonade stand to the corner, I doubled traffic because I got both, intersection of this way and that way, so I could really increase revenues and offset some of my fixed costs. If I made the lemonade more on demand, then I could keep the powder for later, so I'd reduce my COGS. But that didn't ultimately build into the enterprise that I needed to meet my real aspirations. So later I started my first real business, which was Coleman Computer Consulting. I was, and still am, kind of at least all my friends would call me a nerd, I'm sure. And so I built a company that was kind of the original Geek Squad, I guess. I'd go around to neighbors' houses and help them remove viruses or set up a new, upgrade their modem from 28 to 56K, or put in a brand new, when a wireless router came out, that was a really big advancement. So Coleman Computer Consulting was probably the first real business that I started when I was probably 9 or 10, and then kept doing that until I went to college. So that paid for my first car and
nice.
The stereo that I really wanted to play that new Nelly CD.
So that's awesome. So one of the things that I'm passionate about helping people understand is that they do have true unique gifts and talents that are wired in. So I'm curious, what did you discover early on that you were great at, and how did you discover what that was?
Yeah, I think knowing strengths is really, really important. And I did feel really early that I was a great problem solver.
Okay.
I think I discovered that actually in maybe the lemonade stand, where I figured out that, going down the block was a much better place to be. Or when I was solving problems on people, I'd go to someone's house and show up as Coleman Computer Consulting and need to hear their problem and solve it. Some of them I'd heard before or seen before, and some of them I totally honestly didn't really know what the heck I was going to do. And so putting yourself in those positions where you're forced to kind of be on the fly, present a brand, build a company, but also figure it out, I think was an interesting kind of foundational part of that. But I think I probably really realized it in a more cohesive way in my first real job, I'll call it, where I was an actual consultant at an actual firm. And I really saw that I both had an ability, but also a real love, maybe a desire, a passion for solving problems. It excited me. It got me up and going every morning, and kept me working hard. And I think that when you find that, which is something that gets, you have a passion for and you can be good at, that's I think when you can start to really put the pieces together.
So I heard something that you have a passion for, something that you're good at, and it was the application of the ability to see that it was something you were good at. So what would you say is the universal principle there? Like if you were to give people advice here, discover your superpower by doing this, what would you say?
Yeah, well, look, I will say that you shouldn't only do things you're good at, because I think you do need to also push yourself out of your comfort zone. You learn by failing. And so by doing that, I believe that if you identify strengths and lean on them, you can grow quickly. But if you stay too far within your comfort zone, you'll actually then start to plateau. And so I think it is a really interesting kind of mix of identifying and having confidence in your strengths, but also pushing yourself to grow those continuously and finding a way that that whatever it is that can excite you to do that, whether that's financially motivated or professionally motivated or whatever it is that's going to create excitement, because you do need to be excited, but sometimes you're going to have to get excited about stuff that you otherwise might not be. And I think that is kind of one of the keys to success, is figuring out what is the nugget of what you're going to need to do that's going to excite you to do it.
Interesting. Okay. So the things that you're good at, and also putting yourself out of your comfort zone. What was the most significant thing that you've learned about yourself recently by putting yourself out of your comfort zone?
You said you were going to send me all the questions.
That would happen on the fly.
I'm kidding. No, I mean, I think, look, I'm trying to learn literally every single day. And I think that what I am really focused on kind of in today, and in the last week and in the last month is how to lead through uncertainty. It was a topic that I was actually talking to the leaders here at Headstorm about this morning. We're in a really, really uncertain world right now. What are interest rates going to do? Are we entering a recession, or are we going to have a soft landing? What are the capital markets going to look like? And I think that I'm pretty good at problem solving and having a clear vision and articulating a path. And normally I have very high certainty, at least within my own vision and view. And right now I'm feeling a little less certain than I've ever felt about what the future looks like. And I'm trying to, yesterday, we had a town hall at Alto where I shared a lot of that uncertainty with my team. And that's not super comfortable for me to be able to answer questions and say, I don't know. Because my gut is to just say, yeah, this is what's going to happen, or here's how it's going to lay out. But the truth is that I don't know. So that is something that I'm trying to work through personally and figure out how to help lead a company in that environment, to help balance setting a vision, articulating a path, but also making it clear that there are some things out there that we're going to have to solve together, because we're probably going to have to be agile. We're probably going to have to be responsive. We're probably going to have to tack as we learn more.
So what did you learn from this experience?
What did I learn from that? Well, I learned that it went, I think that in doing that, my feedback that I got, it's been a day, but was that, hey, that was really helpful to me. It's not scary. It's actually comforting to know that we don't have all the answers, but that we're going to figure them out together. And so it probably is going to change the way that I even think about my communication style, the way that I talk to the team. Maybe even in times when I feel like there's more certainty, because I think actually for me also it was a little bit freeing to not have to carry that burden of like, okay, everybody expects Will to have the answer. And so I think, I'll probably lean on that more.
So I think what I heard maybe was transparency.
Yeah.
Your team appreciates transparency, especially when things are uncertain. So I think that's the key lesson. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. Before starting Alto, you were a partner at McKinsey. What was that like?
It was a lot of fun. I got to solve cool problems. I got to travel to cool places. I love, my wife and I's passion is travel. We try to do it whenever we possibly can. I got to work with incredibly smart people. I learned more than I ever thought that I would or could. And so I have a real soft spot, I guess, in my heart and in my memory for the firm. Yeah, had a blast there. And how was that decision? The decision to leave the firm and go start your own thing. What was that like? That was super tough. That was the hardest part of starting Alto for sure. Mm-hmm. For me, I had no intention actually to leave McKinsey. I was doing well. I was happy. My family was happy, and yet I wasn't fully satisfied. I always knew that I wanted to build something. And so when this idea and the opportunity for Alto came together, it was a really challenging position because I felt strongly that I wanted to do it, but I also was super nervous, super skeptical of whether I should, because why would I break off of this path that feels so good? Why would I take a risk when I have just achieved some form of success? And can I convince Kendall that that's a good idea? Can I convince my family that's a good idea? Can I convince my friends and my mentors, will they still support me in this? So it was a really, really challenging couple of months going through that process. But ultimately, one of my closest mentors, I never went to business school, but he was a Stanford Business School guy. So at Stanford Business School, anybody that's been there knows, but it's like super touchy-feely, like they're really into feeling your emotions. And he told me that one of his professors told him this saying, which was that regret for what you have done can be tempered by time, but regret for what you haven't done is inconsolable.
Oh.
What he meant was, if you do something and you fail, you'll get over it in a day or a week or a month or a year or a decade. You'll ultimately get over it. But if you think about something and you don't do it, you don't try it, and you have regret that you didn't, and you have to think about that forever, like what would have happened, then you'll never get over it. And I thought about Alto, and I thought that might happen. I might think in 10 years or in 20 years or when I retire, what if? And so that was what led me to say, I got to try.
I think that was really profound as far as what you mentioned. It's like the thing that you don't do, that's the thing you're going to regret the most, right? Okay, awesome. So, Will, before we close with the keys to success, and you can offer our audience some prescriptive advice, right? Is there anything else that you can look into your own story that was unique, that shaped your character?
Shaped my character? I mean, I think, I do think this like trade-off of risk and reward is probably something that we talked about, what's wired. Like, I'm relatively risk adverse, which is weird. On things of like safety and like budgeting of my own life, but I also am relatively willing to try things that I think others might look at and say that's crazy. To leap out and I enjoy being out of my comfort zone to a certain extent. I don't know how that was shaped, honestly. But I do think that is something that is unique to my character. It's like I thrive in discomfort, in maybe less ambiguity, but that really sparks me, turns me on, and keeps me engaged. And I think that's sometimes maybe a character flaw or a personality disorder, but a lot of time has really helped me in achieving different forms of success.
So taking risks and putting yourself out there. Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So, Will, I want to close with the keys to success and really talk about the things that have uniquely allowed you to succeed in your career. And the first one is problem solving. So first off, raise your hand if you have any kind of problem that you're dealing right now, personally or professionally. Okay, that's everyone here, okay? So, Will, what is unique about your approach to problem solving, and what can we learn from it?
I don't think it's that unique, honestly. I mean, my approach to problem solving is essentially the scientific method, which I think is pretty tried and true, honestly. It's to start with a hypothesis or a set of hypotheses, and then to test, and then to learn. Okay. That's how I try to treat every single problem. What do I see? What do I believe? And how am I going to prove or disprove to myself that that is the truth? I do think that over time, as you run the scientific method and go through that problem-solving process, you also then are able to shortcut it. And that's probably where I think that I maybe have added a unique mode to my own problem-solving ability, which is I just call pattern recognition. You see and interact in a broad set of problems over time, you start to see patterns between them. And then the ability to identify those patterns and to rely on your gut to shape your hypothesis and maybe even to shortcut the test, I think is what allows me personally to solve problems well and quickly.
So you started with a hypothesis, you tested, you looked at the results, but the unique thing that you do is kind of looking at the broad swath of data that happened and recognizing patterns.
Yeah, I go from in the MBTI, it's from intuition to sensing. It's about going from, requiring every set of data and the full fact base and, the entire model to convince yourself, to sensing, which is, yeah, okay, I've seen that before. I got this data point, and because of these two things, I'm confident. Let's go do that.
Okay. And as part of that process, I think we all know failure is involved in a necessary thing.
100%.
So what is your perspective on failure? What's your relationship with it?
I believe that failure is, it's necessary. I mean, if you're not failing, then you're not executing the scientific method. You're not testing hypotheses. You're going to fail, hopefully, just as much or maybe just slightly less than you succeed. The most successful people in the world do that, right? If you're the best professional football team or the New York Yankees, over the course of time, you're going to win just slightly more than you lose. If you're not routinely testing and learning, then you're not going to be failing. And if you're not failing, then you're not going to be succeeding.
What would you say is the best example and outcome at Alto of a win of having applied your method of problem solving?
Well, we literally try to do it every single day, right? I think we're in the midst of a pretty interesting commercial negotiation with a big potential customer, and there's a lot of unknown. And on our leadership call this morning, I asked our team, what if we just went and started doing this in the background without telling anybody? Not telling the customer, not telling our team, but just went and started doing it. And they said, well, what about this and what about that? And I said, well, actually, I have those same questions. The fastest way for us to solve them, to answer them, is to go try. And we might screw it up. We might fail, but we'll also for sure learn, and we'll know in 10 days or in 20 days or in 30 days a lot more to inform the broader negotiation that we're in. What are the real pitfalls or the real opportunities by having just gone and done it, than by trying to solve all these in a piece of paper and over Zoom calls. So I think that's kind of my mindset. Is the hypothesis is we want to do the deal. The test is, can we do the deal? Is that the right answer? And the only way, doing the deal and then learning, is a way worse, if it doesn't work, that's a way worse path than trying it before we do the deal.
Gotcha. So really just identifying what it is that you want to do, then just it's action, it's blunt force doing the things, figuring out.
Build it. Yeah. We haven't fully designed the test. We need to go do that, right? We need to make sure that we're testing the right things. So we have this hypothesis. I told them this morning, I think we should go do it. They said we have 10 questions. I said, I don't know the answers, but let's design the test to ensure that it goes and answers those 10 questions. And then let's go do it.
So you mentioned pattern recognition, and you mentioned that you have observed a non-linear pattern to success. What does that mean?
Well, it means that every answer is going to likely be different than what you expected. And so it's in a career, in building a company, and you're always going to have peaks and valleys. And so by nonlinear, right? We've looked at the course of I can look over Alto, right? We were building in Dallas and being what outsiders and maybe even we would have said was being super successful. And overnight, we lost 95% of our revenue in March of 2022. Oh. Boom. That's a nonlinear event that totally reshaped the trajectory of the business. We had to react and then get on a new path. And then Russia invaded Ukraine, oil prices, inflation, and a set of capital market dynamics that haven't been seen in at least 10 or 15 years. Boom, something, and so it's always going to feel, I think it should always feel like you're getting, you're tacking. You need to be headed in the right direction, but if it always feels like it's up and to the right, then again, you're probably not quite far enough outside of your comfort zone. You're probably not trying things fast enough. You're probably not failing enough. And so it needs to feel like some days are great and other days aren't, or some hours are great and others aren't, because that's the that's the process.
And how do you personally stay motivated amidst all the craziness that happens when you're not on that linear path to success?
Well, maybe that's the personality trait. Like that actually drives me. Adversity, I think when we're on the kind of like on the wind, the sails are headed in the right direction and the boat is moving super fast. That's a great feeling, but it's actually, for me personally, not the most motivating. It's when all hands on deck. We need to pull down the jib and move it and tack to a different direction, and we need to solve this problem, and we need to do it super fast. That's what stimulates me. And so I actually really like to be in that nonlinear aspect. Like if I'm in too much what feels smooth waters, that I don't feel like I'm learning fast enough, I don't feel like I'm moving fast enough, and I can become disengaged.
Gotcha. So a few more questions before we land the plane here. One of the philosophies that you told me that you really do believe in, that I know there's going to be a lot of cynics out there, is that you truly believe that anything is possible. Why do you believe this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I need to qualify. I don't really believe anything is possible. I mean, look, I think there's no way I'm ever going to win a Super Bowl. On the other hand, like, I do believe that with the right preparation, I could probably, beat Mark Zuckerberg in a cage match. I think it's possible to set really ambitious aspirations, and it's possible to achieve them. And I think there's lots and lots of evidence of that. But going back to, the point around failure, you're gonna have to set those goals to a place where you're not gonna do it every time. I was just watching the US Open. My wife is a huge tennis fan, so I've kind of gotten into it. Coco Gauff is one of the best players. She's now in this final of the US Open. She won last night. She has had that goal since she's been 10 or 9 to win the US Open. And she is for the first time going to get to try on Saturday. And yet she's also been there 6 times before. But to the same way that Wade woke up this morning and had to dump all his marbles out, but he's going to try again tonight, like she's going to try again this year. And if she didn't keep trying, she would never make it. And so she had this crazy ambition of winning the US Open as a 9-year-old. And she failed 5 times, and maybe he was going to fail a 6th. Who knows, right? Like she's going to have to play. It's going to be a tight match. So I think that's my it's not that anything is possible. You need to set. You need to know your strengths. You need to know what you're good at, what's possible, what you can build on. But you can and should set really, really ambitious goals. And now I guess I'm going to have to start learning MMA.
Right. So we'll close this out with some final advice here. What would be the best career advice that you would give everyone here in attendance and all of our viewers?
I think the simplest career advice is just to show up. I think you're here and you're in an experience and you're in a career and you're in a specific job and you're in this room even for a reason. And the way to be successful in that moment is to show up, be here in the room, lean on your strengths, showcase what you can do and why you can do something differently. And I think that in today's day and age, that seems somehow so obvious, but actually isn't. There's a lot of people that just don't want to show up or say they can't show up or have, some other obligation or need some coax. I think that honestly, the easiest thing to do is just to show up and be engaged. And I think through that, you're gonna learn a ton, you're gonna be stimulated, you're gonna be mentored, you're gonna learn. And then you should use that to show up to the next thing and show up excited and find a reason to be excited and then use that to learn and just keep the process moving.
Show up, be present, be engaged.
Yeah.
I love that. Will, the show is called Pathways to Success. As a final question, how do you personally define what success is?
Success is meeting your goal. And so it really depends on what your goal is and what your time frame is, right? For me, I define success differently for this podcast, for today, for next week, for next month, for next year, for the next 10 years. So I think it's all, success for me is about setting an aspiration, having clarity into what your goal is, and then finding a path to succeed it, to meet it.
Love it. Will Coleman, everyone. This is awesome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
And Will, if you would close us out, go direct into this camera. Tell us how to find out more about Alto. What's your website? How to connect with you personally? If you would close us out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to ridalto.com, or you can find us on the App Store or Google Play. When you download the Alto app and you create an account, you can use my personal promo code, I know the CEO, for 2 free rides.
Awesome. Cool. I'll make sure to have that in the show notes as well. So Will, this has been awesome, man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.